Trash Cinema.
Welcome everybody to Trash Cinema. I'm your host Michael, and my guest host this week,
This is Tony.
Tony. Oh man, we've been waiting to do this one for a little while now, and I apologize for the delay. Sometimes you get swamped in episodes and you realize, oh crap, I left that sitting on the back burner. This week we are discussing two movies from Michael Lehmann, Meet the Applegates and Hudson Hawk. We were discussing this, and we feel that Michael Lehmann is severely underrated. He did Heathers, and then he did Meet the Applegates, Hudson Hawk, Airheads, and all three of those just, it almost derailed his career.
Yeah, honestly, which is a shame because for the most part, I enjoyed almost all those movies.
Yeah, all three of those. I had never seen Meet the Applegates until you mentioned it to me. I even had a copy of it on VHS, but I just never got around to watching it. I ended up selling it off. And I think he had his big comeback with The Truth About Cats and Dogs. But other than that, he kind of does TV and some other, like, I think he did 40 Days and 40 Nights, you know, that Josh Hartnett movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's kind of one of those guys that has the talent and he has the skills, but for some reason, people just don't usually connect to what he's doing. And it's kind of a shame.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those ones where it's not mainstream methods and mainstream humor, so you kind of have to just really give it a chance and sit through it. But I think it's worth it almost every single time.
Yeah, I think it's funny is that I was watching Heathers. I just wanted to watch it for my own enjoyment, just to get a reminder of all his projects. And I looked it up, and it was not a hit. It wasn't until it hit video that it became like the word of mouth kind of movie. So even then, he got the critical acclaim, but people still weren't showing up for it. So he's kind of like a niche. Like, if you get his stuff, you really get his stuff. Like, kind of like John Waters. Like, he has a very specific audience, and it's not mainstream, but they're really devoted. All right, so the first movie we're going to mention is Meet the Applegates. I just watched it for the first time, and I was astounded by it. I cannot believe that I've never seen this. I remember seeing commercials on Comedy Central on a regular basis for it, but I just never connected to it. I was like, I'll watch it some other time. And it's a shame. I really wish I had seen it earlier.
It has all the classic makeups for your generic, like, alien-style horror movie where, you know, it's just like this big type of scary thing comes in, but halfway through it takes an entire left turn, and you're left wondering, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, it starts off like a monster movie with a environmental message. It's about giant... I started to say that was cockroaches when I first heard about it, but they're mantises, right?
Yeah.
So they can find a way of hiding themselves inside human. Do not use logic with trying to figure out how a bug can constantly go back to being a human, and you know, there's no reasoning to it. It's kind of what do you call it? Deus Machina? I don't know.
Yeah. Deus Ex Machina is just you know, God in the machine. It's something that they can do. You have to kind of just accept it. I mean, they're big giant praying mantises to begin with, so you're already extending your disbelief as far as you want to.
Right. And so don't get too caught up in the logic of that. That's not the point of the movie. Yes, there is an environmental spin on it, but it almost seems like that's also a false front. The real point is the fact that these bugs basically get trapped in the same exact cycle that every human gets in. You know, they get up to their eyeballs in credit card debt. They get tempted by another woman. You know, the drugs and the pregnancy. It's funny. It's almost like taking every soap opera cliche and somehow throwing it into this campy horror film.
Yeah, it's kind of fun seeing that downward spiral they face because they, in order to pretend to be human, base themselves off this super generic, pippy, you know, Meet the Beavers type of family model and come to town, and they're just this really out there, straight edge family, slowly introduced into the reality of the world full of weird and different people from what they're planning on.
You know, the funny thing is, I was looking at the credits on this, and Denise DeNovi produced it. Now, a year and a half later, she would produce Edward Scissorhands for Tim Burton, which has kind of the same feel, taking an oddball concept, but putting it in like a generic 1950s all-American Leave It to Beaver kind of world. I wonder...
Now that you mention it, I wonder if they use the same neighborhood.
Yeah, it's possible. There's only... You ever notice, like, during the 80s, there's a certain amount of neighborhoods that were constantly reused? You see it in Joe Dante movies the most, because, like, if you look at Gremlins, that town square was used over and over. and The Burbs and Back to the Future. How many times did we see that town square?
Right.
That's something you don't really see now, and I kind of miss it. But Meet the Applegates, really strong satire and dark sense of humor, but it's not a bleak sense of humor. It's not tasteless. It just takes something and spins it in an oddball way.
Yeah, and it's a good way to see people just be people, and sort of like react to situations and to different things. I mean, it's yet another one of those secret movies where it's like this is kind of about racism, but it's not about racism.
It's about a lot of things. There's so much going on in this movie. You feel like you need to watch it 2 or 3 times because there is still a fun, campy horror movie up front, and then there's all these layers underneath. And it was really enjoyable. The special effects were really astounding. I enjoyed watching those mantis. I mean, they even have a scene where they're just like hanging out at night in the park, just being a family. Just
wandering around, hanging out. They have a cockroach dog pet thingy that's a giant cockroach. I mean, there's just portions where it's like, this isn't really necessary, but it's entirely necessary.
And I kind of lament the fact that Ed Begley Jr., I think this might be one of his only starring roles, besides this in Transylvania 65000. And there's so much to be... I feel like I'm missing a huge chunk of his career because he was always kind of like the supporting character.
Yeah, no, that's true. I highly recommend this. This is one of those instances where it's a movie that no one I know has really seen, and I try to force people to watch it every now and again. And I'd say I give it a shot to just about anybody out there, just for something different and fresh.
Yeah, and I think it would have had a bigger audience, but the company that produced it, New World, they imploded right around the time this movie was wrapping up, because Warlock and The Punisher were one of their last movies, and of course we know what happened to The Punisher. And Warlock got sold off to another studio because it was too expensive. And it's just one of those things, like it's a very tail end. They didn't have money to put it out in theaters and promote it. And at least it can still find an audience on video. But I think the DVD is very, very hard to find. So good luck on that one. All right, so our second movie is his follow-up to Meet the Applegates is Hudson Hawk. His huge studio flick, which at the time was a huge, huge box office bomb. I looked it up, and I remember it being a bomb, but I didn't know how bad. It cost $65 million and only made 17. How in the world did they just flat out reject this movie?
I don't know. I don't know if it was in between the era of the generic action hero / spy flick. Although I do get a sense that. From the old classic commercials that I've seen for this movie, you're not really quite sure exactly, is this a satire, is this a comedy, is this an action flick? And by all means, it's actually all of them at the same time, and I don't know if anyone was really ready for that.
Yeah, I got so, when I was a kid, I got really excited about this. I saw the poster, and it was one of those unusual posters at the time, because it was like, catch the adventure, catch the excitement, catch the hawk. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm there, I'm going to watch that.
Right.
And I think the problem is that it is R-rated. I mean, it is very R-rated.
Oh, yeah.
But they kind of try to sell it as a PG-13, like an Indiana Jones adventure, like a Dick Tracy flavor to it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a hard sell. But at the same time, if, like you and I, we have kind of the same sense of humor, though we are divided on our Jason Statham's.
Yeah, don't get me started, man. I mean, anyone else, I would stop being friends with them. I will forgive you this one thing because I understand not everyone can be as much of a Jason Statham and Chris Pratt fan as I am.
I don't know. Was that a real skit? Because I watched the rehearsals on YouTube, and I can't tell if it was the final product because it was so slow and clumsy.
Oh yeah, that's all they did. It was never released for actual. SNL episodes, but it was one of their skits that they cut out entirely, and that's actually where I left off because the entire time he was doing it so slow because he kept tripping over the tongue twister. It was fun watching him just get out. So sorry, segue here. Chris Pratt did an SNL episode where he dressed up as Jason Statham and was doing a commercial for Jason Statham's Jason Stathams.
I think the reason
you see like the sweat just dripping down his head when he's trying to say, come on. Jason Statham's. Jason.
I'll give it another shot. But for me, I was sitting there going, "Oh, this is just another John Hamm. Remember that?" So I'll give it another shot and see what happens. But for the most part, we share the same kind of sense of humor. And this to me feels like if they took the Adventure of Dick Tracy and threw in the Looney Tunes.
Oh yeah,
but like the darkest version of Looney Tunes, because there's some humor that's completely macabre.
Yeah, like I was gonna say, puts in the action spy adventures of James Bond and throws in a little bit of what's his name? He does all of the satire movies. Not Mel Blanc. Oh god, he did Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Oh my God, why are we having this moment?
Right?
Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks. Yeah, it had a James Bond, Mel Brooks type of thing where, like there was good action, good sequences, and at the same time, just like really out there, bizarre moments. Me, a stickler for detail, so Bruce Willis sings all of his songs on this himself, which, he sings songs. He has a CD.
I had that CD. I played that over and over. The Return of Bruno, I think is what it was called. Yeah, I listened to the crap out of that.
Gold. But, so he sings all of his own songs, but like me, a stickler for details, the reason why he sings the songs is because he's trying to sync up in time to do these, over-the-top theft scenes.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite scenes is where he's discussing. He gives him a time, and he has to come up with a song. And I was like, man, that is such an intricate detail. I wonder if someone actually thought of that themselves. Like something like that came up in their own life. And they're like, oh hell, I got to put that in a script.
Well, I imagine it's actually a tool used before people could just synchronize themselves to each other, or use a stopwatch, or have something on hand, because you keep a mental clock. But what bothers me, though, is the fact that he gives these songs, and then he says how the length of the songs. And I go back and I look at all these songs, and no matter how many different versions of the songs that I find, including the ones that he actually sings himself, they are not as long as the theft requires them to be. I was like, come on, guys, you couldn't have found a song that actually fit into the sequence?
Yeah.
You couldn't have reduced the timing to actually fit into the song? It's like, no. It's like, Swinging on a Star, it's like, 5 minutes, 1 second. I'm like, no, man, it's like 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes tops.
So the one thing that does hamper this movie is I feel like there's, you ever get that feeling there's too many writers? Like, all of a sudden you're going in this one direction, but then it's another direction. And I wanted to stay... Daniel Waters was one of the writers on this, and he did Demolition Man, Batman Returns, Heathers. And he has... I'm going to guess a lot of the humor, the craziness, comes from him. And then all the action, all the setup is from Steven D'Souza, the guy who did Street Fighter and 48 Hours and stuff like that. I feel like the action part is getting in the way of the comedy part.
Yeah, there are definite times. I mean, it feels like there are 4 people writing, and they're just constantly like arguing with each other throughout the entirety of the movie. Not the script, the movie. So, spoiler alert: his buddy dies towards the end, and then at the very end of the movie, he doesn't die towards the end. I'm like, is this just a sequence where someone wrote a portion of it, and someone said, no, that didn't happen. Let's rewrite that.
Yeah, it has a retcon right in the middle of the movie.
Yeah. Which is like a part of the satire where it's like, wow, did they really just, all right. And then there are sequences where it's like, the best friend betrays him, but the best friend really didn't betray him, and they're really just best friends. And you're like, did you just rewrite this yet again in the middle of the movie?
No, that's what it said. I was looking it up, and it said constantly throughout the movie they were rewriting. Yeah. And you can kind of feel that going along. But to give the director credit, he still keeps the tone of the movie pretty solid. So it doesn't feel like it's like completely jarring. You're like, oh, I feel like I'm in a whole different movie all of a sudden. Like I've seen it happen. Like Lethal Weapon 4. That's one of those movies where the action is really dead serious and the comedy is just like, well, there's no script. They're just improvising this. It doesn't take you out of it. And it's so quotable. This movie has so many great one-liners. Not all of them are PC.
Yeah.
It's a Joel Silver kind of makes movies like that are a little more on PC, a little darker than I think people expect out of your everyday action adventure movie. Yeah. And it's just you're just gonna have to ride it or get off, because it's not gonna be your movie.
Absolutely. There's a whole lot going on, and honestly, to truly enjoy it, I say you have to watch it a couple times, because you have to ignore certain things because they get out of hand sometimes, and so you have to watch it again and then like focus on new characters, because the girl that the main love interest is a nun, but yet she's like not a nun, but she's totally a nun. And then, like, the buddy's his best friend who gets him one last job, but it's not really the last job because it's all a trap. And then Hudson Hawk throughout the entirety of it, he just wants coffee. That's his big thing.
Yeah.
He wants coffee.
I don't know, old cappuccino machines always look like Daleks to me. Like,
right?
I was looking on the counter going, I'm waiting for Doctor Who to show up any second now.
Well, it's either that or you're trying to strap him onto your back and put on a nice Rocketeer outfit.
Yeah. Oh my God, that'd be awesome if Hudson Hawk was the new Rocketeer.
Right.
So with this movie, I will say it does. It's not as accessible as Meet the Applegates, which is a weird thing to say. The Giant Mantis movie is more accessible, but if you get into this kind of movie, pretty much anything goes. Almost a parody of the cliches of action movies. This is a fun ride.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think this was the earliest instance of what people nowadays would refer to as hot fuzz, where it's just all the cliches, all the things rolled together into a cohesive, super fun movie. But Hot Fuzz honestly had Edgar Wright, and I actually enjoy his directing and what have you, so
Yeah.
a bit different difference. But in the long run, if you want to have a good time with great music, Hudson Hawk.
That actually
Guaranteed
has a
Hudson Hawk.
voice. It actually, you can tell it's not a generic, let's just sell this internationally. This has a very specific voice. And
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the only movies I see Bruce Willis, because, he seems really tired, like, he doesn't even care. He
Yeah.
seems to be just, like, this is his dream project. He's having so much fun doing it. And for people to reject it was kind of a bummer.
Yeah, honestly, like I think that if we can get a good enough fan base, that we should lobby to have him do a Hudson Hawk 2, because I think he would. Have you seen how many diehards he's done? He would
Yeah.
totally do a Hudson Hawk 2, and you know it.
Oh yeah, no more Die Hards unless they wrap it up in the next one. Let's go with some more Hudson. There is one thing I'll say about this: the video game for the Nintendo was so terrible. It was one of the
Oh,
most excruciatingly painful experiences. This is before I became wise to movie adaptations. But I always wanted. I thought it was funny. Hudson Hawk. I wish it had been released by Hudson Soft. Hudson Soft presents Hudson Hawk, and just watch the confusion of people. Wait, is the game called Hudson Soft? No, it's produced by Hudson. What's the game called? Oh, okay. What? That was stupid, and I just wanted to say it anyway.
Yeah, no, I understand, and I'm with you on that one. Like me being a kid of the '90s, I was like, yeah, man, video game movies are gonna be great. I played them all. I played RoboCop. That game was ridiculously hard.
Ugh.
I played.
Dick Tracy's so bad.
So bad. Ghostbusters, terrible.
Back to the Future, the guy throwing the shakes at you over and over and over.
Yeah, just Rambo. It was impossible to play. You can't beat Rambo. It's harder than actually the Rambo movie itself.
We have a couple minutes left in the episode, but I just want to real quick drop Airheads. That was the third in his series of movies that kind of just faded away. I actually still really enjoy that movie. It's one of those kind of against the system movies, and the soundtrack is one of those things that I owned and I played over and over and over. That's where Adam Sandler basically broke out, where he developed that little shy kid kind of character.
Yeah, yeah. Was that Ernie Hudson in there too?
Yeah. Oh my God, this movie's filled to the brim with either guys on the verge or really good. Michael Richards is in it.
Yeah,
Brendan Arquette.
Fraser.
Yeah, Brendan Fraser, David Arquette, Steve Buscemi right before he broke out, and who else is in that movie?
There was a whole
Farley.
slew. Like, was that Joy Lauren Adams or Renee Zellweger? I think one of them was in there.
I don't remember either one of them. I thought it was Amy Locane from Crybaby.
Oh, it could have been. There was so many people in that movie. It was ridiculous.
Yeah,
but what I wanted to get at was the fact that ye old Winston Zeddemore himself, hated the fact that he got basically, movie captured for Ghostbuster and couldn't do anything else. And here he is in Airheads, which he was great in, but alas, we didn't do so great in theaters.
No, he had a year where he did The Crow, Cowboy Way, and Airheads, and only The Crow really let him shine.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he was just like, well, at least I'm in a studio film, which is not so much anymore. This is a movie where it's three guys who are desperate to get into the music business, break out, and all they want to do is play their single at the local rock station. And somewhere along the way, they get so desperate they actually take the radio station hostage. Oh, Joe Mantegna is so good in this movie. I love that part. He goes, how can you be the Lone Ranger if you are three of you? You're not exactly alone. And Michael McKean being the sellout, who's going to make it all easy listening, classical kind of. It's one of those movies that just sticks it to the man. And me, I was a radio person for years. I really love this movie. Just any movie basically set around a radio station, I dig.
No, I'm with you, and I like some of the silly things that they did. I mean, after they accidentally tripped some things and had the police called on them, they're trying to figure out a way to, not basically go to jail for the rest of their life. And I was like, oh, we'll just request really out there ridiculous things and convince them that we're crazy. Oh, okay, yeah. Let's see, what do we want here? A football helmet full of cottage cheese, naked pictures of B. Arthur. I'm like, oh wow, this is awesome.
The B. Arthur part. My favorite scene is when Adam Sandler is trying to get to the van, and the cop sees him, and they take a step, he takes a step. They take a step, he takes a step. Then all of a sudden, he just starts doing the robot and runs back in. All right, so this episode, this is unusual for us. I recommend all three. Just highly recommend all three.
Yeah, I mean, usually we're tearing apart movies and finding the things that we hate, but these movies, including Airheads, which is kind of a bonus on here, we weren't going to discuss it at all, but they're fun. They're good fun. They're lots of fun. They're enjoyable. I'd watch some of them with family and other ones, in questionable company, primarily Meet the Applegates and
Hudson Hawk. A lot of F-bombs.
They're not over the top. Kids see worse these days, but if you're still a little iffy about it, then I'd say hold off on those two movies. Meet the Applegates. Really, if you're looking for something to give you some interesting social commentaries and sights, I'd recommend that first and foremost. If you're looking for just good music and good fun, Hudson Hawk. And if you're looking just for a, balls out fun time, Airheads, hands down.
All right. That's it for us here at Trash Cinema. I really loved doing that episode. This is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, check us out on Facebook under Retro Rocket Entertainment. We also have a group called Trash Cinema, and you can post anything you think is either an underrated movie, a movie that was a huge bomb, or just a flat-out terrible movie. And that's it for me.
I just wanted to say thanks to all of our fans, all of our foreign fans. I apologize if we don't always agree or disagree, but we definitely want to hear from you, and we definitely want to, maybe have you on the show, do some movies with us. That'd be a lot of fun, too.
Yeah, totally. Send us some recommendations for things that you want us to discuss. We're totally game. Any last words, Tony?
That's it. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, good night.